What's going on YouTube? Welcome to my new series that I'm making called Muscle Gain versus Fat Loss. I know, original name, right? In this series, I'm gonna be talking about addressing certain topics that I've mentioned in the past, but I'm gonna break them down in the differences or similarities that they have between whether your goal is on the one hand fat loss or on the other hand muscle gain. Now, of course, there's also ways that these two overlap tremendously in the sense that you can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, but that will be part of this series and it's going to be all explained for you. And this was actually sparked by a viewer who asked the question on my last video, or one of my last videos, about workout splits when he's trying to lose fat instead of muscle gain, as he thought that I make a lot of content towards muscle gain, and that's not necessarily true. So I decided I'm just going to break this down and bring it all under one roof. So let's go ahead and get started with workout splits and workout programming, and the differences between workout programming and workout splits for muscle gain versus fat loss. Let's go. What's good YouTube? It's Coach John back again, repping Beyond the Iron. You already know what it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'm kind of wondering why you're watching this video and you haven't subbed yet. Obviously I'm a cool guy, you should do it, you know, just saying. No, but seriously, subscribe if you want to get to your fitness goals faster and more enjoyably. And also be sure to check out the rest of the content on the channel. Like I mentioned, I have both fat loss and muscle gain content separately. And so also be sure to follow me on my Instagram right there. And if you're interested in fat loss and knowing how to achieve it better, you can also check out some of the links down below. Same goes for muscle gain. As you can tell, those are pretty much the two topics that I cover on this channel. So we're going to dive into the content, and the first thing we have to do so we can understand the similarities or differences between workout programming when it comes to both fat loss and muscle gain is understand how fat loss occurs in the first place. Okay, a lot of people actually don't really quite understand this, so let's break it down very quickly, very briefly. If you want to make sure that you're not just losing weight, which could include muscle, and you isolate that fat so that you just lose that, it's going to be a combination of weightlifting, adequate protein intake, and a controlled calorie deficit over time. Okay, now 2/3 of this seems to be on the nutrition side, which is pretty much correct. In fact, you'll probably find that it's a lot more than just 2/3. It's pretty much all nutrition when it comes down to the fat loss, and I may be giving away the answer to this video right then and there, but you must understand those principles first. On that note, it is very important that you weightlift. So if you aren't currently weightlifting and you're maybe following some sort of a studio workout, some sort of circuit training, a P90X, an Insanity, or any one of these types of workout programs in hopes that it is what is optimal for fat loss, then you're definitely going to want to stick around for this video, because that is not the case. You want intentional weightlifting, resistance training that's going to help you in building and or sustaining muscle when you're trying to lose fat. And so now we look at exactly how do you build muscle. Briefly, again, building muscle is a matter of stimulating the muscle to grow in a specific way through resistance training. Also, adequate protein intake, and instead of a caloric deficit, you switch it and it should be a caloric surplus, or at least in an ideal world, it should be a caloric surplus. So on the training end, you might be able to start to see that there's actually very minimal differences, because whatever produces that muscle gain stimulus when you're trying to gain muscle is still the same when you're trying to lose fat. And you want to make sure that you're producing the same stimulus through the adequate intensity, the adequate volume, the adequate frequency, to make sure that that muscle either keeps building as you're in a deficit and you chip away at fat, or you at least keep that muscle around because your body understands that there's actually a proper need for it to be around as you chip away at that fat from doing the right things in the kitchen. By the way, you guys, like my plant here, it's I'd love to say it's been making gains, but I haven't been the best at watering it lately. I'm working on it. So with all of that said, there isn't actually a need to switch your training split, your workout split, or really your training programming. Again, the factors I mentioned through frequency, intensity, and volume, whether or not you're gaining muscle or losing fat. There are some caveats, which I'll go into in a bit, but again, you must understand there's plenty of myths myths that have been around for a long time. On the one hand, for example, suggesting that you need to do higher reps so that you can tone the muscle. Now, hopefully, if you've been following me, you'll know this, but if you haven't, hopefully you understand that that is not true at all. In fact, you are more likely to lose muscle if you're just doing very, very high reps all the time, because again, you're not producing enough intensity, enough load on the muscle to stimulate it to stick around. So if you combine a caloric deficit with a training stimulus that doesn't force your body to say, we got to stay strong to lift this weight, then it will actually probably increase your chance of muscle loss. And not only that, the myth was backed up because of the fact that when you're doing more reps, you typically can burn more calories. And again, calories being burned is always a good thing when you're trying to lose fat, but instead of utilizing resistance training for the way it should be and for the purpose it's there for, they started to use it in a way such as circuit training to convince us that, hey, we're lifting weights, we must be building muscle, but we're doing it in a way that we can kill two birds with one stone, and that's just simply not the case. Now, on the other end of that myth, we have another myth that was more recent and also more recently debunked, which people were under the impression that, yes, you want to keep that stimulus around, so you actually have to go a lot heavier when you're trying to lose fat, and this is not the case either. Like I mentioned, you can generally keep whatever rep ranges, whatever set ranges you were working in before, and intensities, granted that they were in the realm of either strength or muscle gain. So what do I mean by this? Well, generally strength gain, you want 2/3 to 3/4 of your volume of the total workout to be between the 1 to 6 rep range, and then on the muscle building side, you want 2/3 to 3/4 of your workout volume there to be between 6 to 12 rep ranges. And of course, you can include and should include the extremities on both sides. So very high reps can be included in some isolation, and very, very low reps can be included to still build some more strength if you're trying to build muscle. With those rep ranges in mind, granted the 6 to 12 rep range for most people out there that are looking to feel better, get stronger still, but build muscle as well, or sustain it in this case, you should still stick between those rep ranges. You don't have to say, I'm cutting, time to jack the reps up, or I'm cutting, time to bring the reps down and jack the weight up. It's not necessarily the case. What needs to stick around is that fundamental principle of progressive overload over time, the accumulation of volume, proper intensities, which again don't have to change much from where they were before. You still want to go in the gym with the mentality that you want to get stronger rep by rep, 5 pounds by 5 pounds, just like you would if you were trying to build muscle. All you have to understand is that performance over time may start to decrease to a small extent, simply because once you've started losing quite a bit of body weight, oftentimes relative strength is still going up, but absolute strength will reflect that you aren't lifting as much. So that's pretty much to say that fat loss is almost all on the nutrition side of things, except for cardio. That's another mistake people often make, is they start to make their workout based solely around cardio. And like I mentioned, weight training is important because if all you're doing is cardio, there isn't that stimulus that you need. However, it's important to note that one thing that may and probably will switch in your training when you go from muscle gain to fat loss is including more cardio in your program, whether that be in the morning or after your workouts like I do. Generally, cardio is a great tool, not something that directly causes fat loss, but a tool that helps to create it over time. So you're probably going to want to add in some more cardio post-workout or in the mornings to help you create that caloric deficit over time while not having to drop your food as much. Because as we mentioned, you do still want to keep that adequate protein, and if you don't add more cardio over time, that means that you're taking away more protein over time. So these are important factors to understand. So your workout split may only really change in the sense that you are doing more cardio or you're adding more cardio. Another possible way it could slightly change for fat loss is rest days. So when you're in a caloric surplus and you're looking to build muscle, generally you recover faster because your body has extra energy to do so. But on the fat loss side of things, your body over time, especially as it's getting beaten down with the weights and it's been in such a deficit over so long, you're going to realize that you don't recover differ as well. You're gonna have to take the extra time to stretch. Maybe an extra day a week needs to be taken off to stretch, recover, like cardio, or just do nothing to make sure that you can still perform at your best on the workouts that you do go in to do so. So that's something else to keep in mind. You may also have to drop some sets, some reps in some of those exercises because the overall volume is gonna go down as well. Let's face it, if you're in a deficit over a long period of time, you will notice performance decreases on an absolute scale at first, and then the more this deficit is prolonged on a relative scale eventually, but it typically doesn't get to that point. All you have to understand is the only two variables that can, and in most cases should, change at some point when you're trying to lose fat is just adding cardio and adding or managing rest a lot better. So on the other side, it's usually going to be decreasing cardio or just increasing calories in the kitchen, and of course keeping and managing that rest time, but volume is going to increase. Workouts may be longer when you're focusing on muscle gain, but the split itself does not have to change. Whether you're on 3 days, 4, 5, or 6, you will not lose muscle on one versus the other so long as those fundamental principles that I mentioned in this whole video are down packed. And also, one more thing to keep in mind is if you are in a studio workout like Orange Theory, 9 round, whatever it's called, F45, these types of, or just circuit training in general, and that's how you like to work out for the most part, it's important to note that you want to quantify how many calories you're burning there, because that ultimately is what those workouts are for, is for calorie burn, not for muscle gain. You want to make sure that you're not relying on those workouts as your sole form of activity and muscle gain work, and you want to make sure you have the adequate amounts of resistance training in there. So if you're not sure of two things here, if you're not sure how many calories you should be having or protein intake, you can check this video out right here that I made explaining all that stuff for you. And the next video you'll see pop up is going to be on workout splits and which one could be best for you. And again, whichever one you pick will take you through whether it's fat loss or muscle gain, and you can make them gains or the losses, which are still gains in your case. So that's pretty much it. Hope that I was able to get my point across and explain the logistics behind why it is that training does not differ that much between fat loss and muscle gain. And hopefully by making this video, very few people ask me this question again, though it is the internet and I'm sure that that's not going to happen. So I hope you enjoyed it. If so, hit that like button down below, hit a dislike or comment below something negative if you want me to roast your ass. I'm just kidding. All positivity all around. Drop your comments below whatever else you'd like to see next on the channel, and as well, don't forget to share with your friends, whoever needs to see this, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the videos I'm dropping every single week. Hit that like button and I'll water my plant. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. I'm out.